Hello student, today we are talking about the pH of salts. So we know that a salt is formed by the reaction between acid and base. So this reaction is called the neutralization reaction. And the reverse reaction can also take place, that is a salt react with water to give back the acid and the base again. So the process is called the salt hydrolysis. So we can say the neutralization is the reverse process of the salt hydrolysis. Okay, or we can say the salt hydrolysis is the reverse of neutralization reaction. Now, although the aqueous solution of many salts are neutral, that is pH equal to 7. At neutral, that is pH is equal to 7. So, salts pH is equal to 7. But some salts produce acidic solutions and some give basic solutions. So, when dissolved in water. So, whenever we dissolve a salt in the water, and it will produce some basic character or basic solutions, that means the pH will be greater than 7. And if it will produce the acidic solution, then it will be less than the 7. Okay, so depending on the nature of the acid and base combining to form the salt, or the nature of an acid and base obtained when salt reacts with water, the salts can be classified into the following 4 types. So there are, first type is salts of strong acids and strong base. So these salts are dissolving in water, give strong acid and strong base. For example, now like sodium chloride with react with water. So this reaction is called hydrolysis. Okay, so when NaCl will react with water, it will form NaOH. This Na will react with OH of this water, and it will form a sodium hydroxide, and which is a strong base. That means this is a strong base, and HCl is also known as the strong acid. This is called hydrochloric acid. Now second example, like K2SO4, that means potassium sulfate, when react with water, or this reaction is called hydrolysis. So it will form KOH. Here you will write 2 KOH and plus H2SO4. So both are the strong acids and strong base. Correct? KOH is a strong base and H2SO4 is strong acid. Now thus the acid and the base produced neutralize each other completely, hence the solution is neutral with pH is equal to 7. So whenever whenever the acid and base both are strong, then they will produce the pH equal to 7. But if acid is strong in comparison of base, then the pH will be lesser than 7, and whenever the basic it will produce little bit more basic solution, then the pH will be greater than 7. So for example, now salts of strong acid and weak base. So in this form, a strong acid and a weak base, correct? So here NH4Cl is a salt, and when react with water, that means hydrolysis, when we do hydrolysis of this ammonium chloride, it will form weak base NH4OH, that is called ammonium hydroxide, and a strong acid, that means its pH will be lesser than 7. Okay, because of the presence of this strong acid. Second is CuSO4, that is when CuSO4 is react with water, or we can say the hydrolysis of copper sulfate, it will produce CuOH whole twice, that is copper second hydroxide, that is a weak base, and it will produce more H2SO4. So H2SO4, that is sulfuric acid, is a strong acid. So the pH will be lesser than 7, because in presence of this acidic condition, the pH will be always lesser than 7. Now the third is when salt of weak acid and strong base. So here when when we hydrolyze a salt, it will form a strong base, hence the pH will be greater than 7. For example, like this is sodium carbonate. When this sodium carbonate react with water, okay, so it will form a strong base, that is sodium hydroxide and carbonic acid. So carbonic acid is a weak acid. Now according to the strong base, its pH will be greater than 7. Next is sodium acetate. So when sodium acetate react with water, that means a hydrolysis of sodium acetate, it will form a strong base, sodium hydroxide and acetic acid. Acetic acid is also a weak acid because this is an organic acid. Okay, so according to the strong base presence, it will be greater, its pH will be greater than 7. So thus the strong base obtained is not completely neutralized by weak acid, hence the solution is basic with pH is greater than 7. Now next, so salts of weak acid and weak base. So for example, ammonium acetate, when the salt of ammonium acetate is dissolved in water, it produces weak acid and weak base. So it will also neutralize a neutral condition. Okay, so here pH will be also equal to 7. So there are four conditions, correct? So in first condition we read that strong base and a strong acid. So in this condition pH will be equal to 7, and the last is weak base and weak acid. In this condition also pH is equal to 7. Then next condition is strong acid and weak base. So in this condition, because of strong acid, pH is lesser than 7. Okay, pH is lesser than 7. And in the next condition is when your base is a strong base and weak acid. In this condition, pH will be greater than 7. Okay, so this was the pH of salts.